keep struggling with finding that first perfect line or first perfect paragraph. But after that, it becomes easier.
It is my pleasure to welcome Dr. Ruchi Jhonsa to my podcast. She is an Indian-born researcher and science communicator who works as a scientific writer and editor at GeneOnline, a news outlet covering latest stories in biopharmaceutical industry and providing in-depth analysis of novel discoveries and treatments. On this episode, she shares stories from her professional journey, taking her from India to Germany and then to United States, her approach to overcoming writer's block, and which movie based on Dan Brown's books is her favorite. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. This is such an honor to have you. Finally, it's been a while since we originally wanted to do this podcast, and I don't want to make it a secret. We only briefly spoke previously, and this is our first face-to-face interaction, or face-to-computer-to-face, which is how everything is done these days. So, what I like to do in the beginning, I always ask my guests for some video or like a video recommendation. So, and I would like to call it Covideo Recommendation. What was a highlight of a movie or TV show that you watched last year that you feel like really left an impact on you?
I think I started with Da Vinci series again, all the Dan Brown books. I mean, those were the books that I read long back, but I'd never watched those movies. So I don't know what happened, but me and my husband went on a Netflix spree during the entire COVID period. And we happened to see that they were actually streaming not all, but Angels and Demons and the Da Vinci Code series as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have to say, this is great. We can have a whole other podcast about Da Vinci Code or Angels and Demons. This is great.
Right.
Which one is your favorite?
I love Angel and Demons more than Da Vinci Code because I think the book inspired me more towards that movie. Mm-hmm. But besides that, I mean, I'm more fan of the books, and I mean, I don't feel very good when they make movies out of books, because books have like in-depth knowledge about the subject that they're talking. But anyway, I think they've done enough justice to the movies, and I feel that they're very great.
No, I really like both of those movies. I think I'm personally gravitating towards the Da Vinci Code just because I haven't read Angels and Demons book. I've only read the Da Vinci Code. I vividly remember reading it, the whole damn book, in one evening. That was like one of the quickest reading experiences I've ever had. And the movie was really good. I really like the music, but Angels and Demons is great. I think since it has a science aspect to it,
sure.
I could see why you would like it too.
Right.
I mean, unless it's all about Ewan McGregor. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's both.
Yeah.
That's a great recommendation. So, given your scientific background, it's obviously only appropriate to ask, what was the fascination of science that you had early on that really drew you to the career that you ultimately took? I mean, we all have a curiosity. I mean, is this something that you were also, passionate about at an early age?
Right. So during my school period, I was pretty sure that I wanted to study biology because that was the only subject that was quite effortless for me. And it so happened that I had one of the best biology teachers possible in my school, and he was very inspirational. I mean, that was my first contact with biology. Mm-hmm. Later on, I decided to do bachelor's, not having thoughts of pursuing higher education, mm-hmm. but just for the fun of it, because mm-hmm. biology was very fascinating for me. When I went to do my bachelor's in biochemistry, I again got an inspiration there, one of my professors. And she had in-depth knowledge about the subject. She could connect variety of subjects. She would make geography insert in biology and biology into chemistry. I mean, all that sort of took my mind away. I was like, wow, if you can do so many things, then there's so much to learn out there. And I definitely wanted to explore all of that. So, but then, of course, you know how it is. People back in my country, people don't just do biology because they want to do it. They also look for monetary gains, like they want to get a job or something like that. In I think after bachelor's, it is slightly difficult to get a job, and I started looking for other options where I could channel my knowledge of biology, but then also get some money out of it. But so I attempted a lot of things. I attempted MBA exams, but my love for biology had never gone away. So
I could completely relate. Yeah.
right. So I eventually realized that there's no point banging my head on the other careers because I am not fond of that. Even if I get in one of the programs, I would end up failing in those. So why not just keep pursuing biology? I asked my teachers, professors, what one can do next, and they suggested why not try a master's. So by then, I was fond of plant biology. Most of the influence had come from my grandfather, who is a I don't know how much of Ayurveda do you understand, but he used to make plant medicines and give it to his patients, and most of them were mainly directed towards diabetic patients. A lot of inspiration came from him, and I wanted to study plants and understand how they influence our body and what we eat and all of that. So I got into plant biology program. I finished that, and now I was stuck again as to what do I do next.
Yeah.
But then it so happened that one of my friends who was not in the field actually, but he started talking to me and he was telling me that, if you're so much interested in a subject, you should definitely go for PhD. I mean, I was in two minds. I didn't know what to do because PhD is a big commitment. I had no clue what to do. And I was not even sure whether I was made up for it. But so between my master's and PhD, I joined a small summer fellowship. It was in one of the reputed institutes in India. It's called as Tata Institute of Fundamental Research. And they have this very nice program for all the master graduates who want to get into PhD but are not very sure how the research would look like. So I did a small internship there, and that's where this friend was, and he sort of pushed me that why don't you give it a try? Even if you don't, if you fail maybe in the first semester, you give it up, but at least give it a shot. And he was quite right about it. I really loved, I mean, I moved away from my parents, but this became my second home. And I met amazing people. My professor was amazing. I had amazing 5 years of PhD and 2 more years beyond because I was also doing some other projects. So all in all, it was an amazing experience. And I would say that I'm thankful to him because he actually helped me or pushed me towards the right direction.
So it's funny you started by saying you really got fascinated with biology. It's really important to have mentors and teachers and professors that really just ignite that spark of curiosity and just imagination in a subject. But I often find that some people would say, "Oh, I had a really nice biology teacher, but like a chemistry I didn't really like. The teacher wasn't so great." And in my personal experience, I had really good teachers for both biology and chemistry. What do you think about chemists? What do you think about chemistry? Was that also a good experience for you, or that actually wasn't the case, and you were just mostly fortunate to have biology teachers that were inspiring?
No, I actually loved chemistry as well, and partly it was because of my school teacher, but then so in India, you also prepare for engineering and medical exams simultaneously when you are in your in your sophomore. I don't know what it's called as. I mean, these are the final years of the school. And so I started taking one of these coaching classes where I happened to meet a chemistry teacher, and he was amazing. So I personally love organic chemistry, but I'm not very fond of inorganic and physical chemistries. But this is one subject that he made so simple for me, and I still love that subject so much just because of it.
That's really good. I would say that science and I always struggled with being in love with science, but what I really realized over the course of doing PhD myself is I'm not that good of a researcher in some ways. So loving science and doing research, in my humble view, is very different things. Are you of the same mind, or you do love the research aspect of it as well as you love science? or you kind of just want to stay clear of the research if you could?
Right. I love research.
Great.
The day I did a dissertation thesis, so my master's thesis was in a research lab, and I really fell in love with the research part. Before that, we used to do these small experiments here and there, but never got a feel of owning a project, which happened only during masters. And there I actually got to think, troubleshoot. It was not an easy project, but it so happened that I learned so many things on the way just because the project was difficult. I had to do everything from scratch. I made my reagents from scratch. I grew my plants, and everything was new for me, yet exciting. And that was another reason. Not just the person who pushed me towards a PhD program, but also my own inclination towards doing research or working on bench or doing experiments.
Do you feel like you could, if you had to do it all over again, would you say that there were like some part of your overall educational experience that could have been shorter? Because it is a really long commitment, bachelor's, master's, PhD, obviously some work during high school. Like that's almost, I think if my math is right, is over a decade of your time, of your life that has been dedicated to that. Is there any part of it that you feel like in retrospect, oh, you wish it was kind of a little bit shorter or maybe longer?
I guess my PhD could have been shorter because a lot of time, so it has been, such things has happened that every time I picked up a project, it was more of an exploratory project.
Yeah.
And so it ended up taking a lot of my time. The only thing that I want to change about that is maybe if I could have done the project with 2 or 3 more students, it would have helped me do it faster. But I don't regret it so much because in the process, I learned so much. I got to collaborate with one of the topmost mental institutions, neurological and mental institutions in India. I met some amazing scientists who are working with human samples. They're studying human samples, but mostly by imaging. And that was one way I got to learn transmission electron microscopy. And there are very few people who get to do that. So I would say I did all of that, and that took a little bit of time. But then I think it's okay because I got to learn a lot in the end.
So you now, you were finished your PhD. You had such a long time getting there. You're in love with research. Why stop there? Why not pursue, let's say, like a full-blown academic career, like become a professor? What was the one thing that says, no, I don't want to do that? Or maybe you still do. I'm not sure. That's why I'm asking the question.
So I think the life of a PI or a principal investigator is quite tough in a way. I don't know if I am made up for that because you have to juggle a lot of things together. You have to write the grants, get the papers out, get the money for the lab. I felt that the entire process was little tiring and little stressful. And I am a kind of person who doesn't like to take stress. But I really love doing bench work and exploring things, getting new projects and working on that. So that aspect I really love. But then there's other aspect of being a professor that I don't love so much. And hence I never wanted to get into a full-blown academic career. But if somebody tells me that I just need to do a bench role, then I am up for it.
That's interesting. Because the reason also why I'm asking is, as far as I know, in India, becoming a tenure professor, you're set for life. You don't really have to worry about too much stress because you don't really get kicked out, as far as I know, right? It's a very secure position. So that's interesting. You say you didn't want some of that because of the stress. I mean, do you feel like that kind of job security that you have as a PI in India wasn't enough? Wouldn't have been enough for you?
No, not really. So more than job security for me, the passion in working is more important, or the effortlessness in working is more important. If I have to put I mean, I love doing new things. I've done that, and I don't mind putting effort in exploring new things. But there are some aspects of that are just too tiring to deal with, and I know that I don't want to. I mean, I don't want to spend next 20, 30 years of my life just fighting against the administration or fetching money for my project. So if somebody can just get me the money, I can do tremendous, research. But
Okay, that's
just
fair.
getting the money is a tough part.
That's fair. And just, I guess, maybe sticking on the subject of being, being a professor in India, because I just, out of my curiosity, do you know, like, what's the, these days, this year, last year, there's a lot of emphasis on, having the diversity in academia, in science. Do you know what's maybe the current situation in India as far as the faculty diversity? Maybe you can shed some light on that if you know something about it.
Diversity in terms of?
In terms of, like, let's say, what's the percentage of female faculty versus male faculty in scientific, in STEM careers, basically?
So if you would have asked me this question 10 years back, I would definitely say that female to male ratio was very, very different. I mean, male faculties were getting more chance as compared to female faculties. But then again, I don't know how many female faculties were applying for those positions. Yeah. Now, before I left the institute, I saw that there were many new female faculties had joined the department. And I think they were encouraging them to apply and be there. A lot of friends of mine have now joined there as faculty, and I know most of them are females. So I think diversity in my institute is definitely changing. I can't say about all other institutes, but Indian institutes, because I've not been there. For my particular institute, I think things are changing.
That's great. So you were at the crossroads in many ways after finishing your PhD, and obviously, as spoiler alert, you ended up in Germany. What was that transition like? I mean, it's not, at least when I was in Germany, I wasn't expecting to end up being in Germany. It was more of a very quick decision, and it just happens by happenstance. What was your sort of a decision-making process like? Did you want to go to Germany? How did that sort of come to be?
So after I finished my PhD, I was looking for postdocs because I am a researcher, and this is like a defined path for any researcher. So I, like any other PhD student, started looking for postdocs. I happened to find one right in my neighborhood. So the fellowship that I applied for was NCBS, MPI CBG fellowship. So a part of work had to be done in NCBS. That was an Indian institution, and part of work had to be done in Max Planck. So I applied for that, and fortunately I got through. I had no idea whether I wanted to go to Germany or the States or where. But one thing I was sure that I definitely want to go perhaps in one of the European institutions just for the fact that Europe is beautiful, and I wanted to explore more of that.
Yes.
So so culture-wise, country-wise, that was my priority. But if I would have gotten any of the institutes in the US, I would not have left that opportunity. Okay. Nevertheless, I got there. So I spent part of my project. I spent 1 year in NCBS, and then I moved to Germany, and it was one of the pleasant experience just because my PI made my life very simple. The institute has amazing international office, so everything was so smooth. I got my house, I got the visa, and everything else happened so quickly for me.
Oh, amazing. So I know you lived in Dresden, right? Have you had a chance to go in any other city in Germany and just visit?
I went to Halle once. That was for a conference. But then Prague is just 2 hours away from there. And I definitely wanted to see Prague at least once. I went to Prague. I went to Krakow. Wanted to go to Greece, but didn't happen. Those were the countries that I went.
I mean, I have to confess, at least portion of my Instagram feed is filled with pictures of German towns right now, and I look very fondly on some of that European German architecture with
Right.
really good memories. I mean, I'm curious. I mean, Dresden is in the East Germany. I wonder, do you what was there any indication of like its former Soviet-like life in, as far as the architecture or maybe people? What do you think?
So I would tell you that before I landed there, a lot of people warned me, warned me that you are going to a region which used to have weird history. I mean, it had weird history. I had no clue about that when I landed there. But the day I came there, things were very easy for me. But I started making friends, and some of those friends would tell me encounters of things that happened to them. Few of them were Muslims, and they unfortunately happened to encounter people who would shout at them and tell them to go back and all of that. None of that happened with me, fortunately. And the reason that did not happen because I had one of the best house owners. So I rented an apartment, but that apartment was in a house of the landlords. And those were one of the best people I've met. They made me feel like at home. They gave me food once in a while. I mean, it's not that they gave me every day, but they would invite me for German dinners. They would invite me when their friends would come over. We had Christmas parties together. There's apparently a festival that happens sometime in September or November.
Oktoberfest?
No, not the Oktoberfest. So it's a very specific fest. Our house was on the banks of River Elbe. And it's called as Elbefest. So I think they celebrate arrival of a new season or something like that. So they have these stalls and people are selling food and you have dance and parades and all of that.
Oh, that's cool.
So it was amazing. And my landlord got me those bands so that I can participate in the festival with no cost. And I had not expected such hospitality there. Because of all the things people told me before, I expected completely opposite. Yet, I had one of the amazing experiences.
That is amazing.
Right. So this was not just my landlord, but my PI as well. She would invite us to our home, cook food for us, and share her stories. I mean, it was fun.
Did you have to learn a bit of German when you came, either before or during your stay there? Because it was definitely, in my experience, I spent about 2.5 years, almost 3 years over there. And even though I was in an international program, but my bachelor program was in English, lots of German students spoke English. But I've often encountered the situations where when we would go to a pub or a bar, and they would just be speaking German for the majority of the time, and I would be just there nodding, as if I understand things. Was this something that you've experienced too, or actually it wasn't the case?
Right. For us, it was not compulsory, but I was asked to take a German a course, and that happened in my own institute. So I had to just spend 2 hours per week, and that was it. It was slightly difficult in the beginning to understand what people are speaking around me. I was also a little conscious because I didn't know how people would respond if I start speaking in English when their native language is something else. So it was slightly difficult, but I would practice as much as I could. I had this app called as Duolingo, and I used to just mug up words at least, so that people around don't feel that I'm not even trying.
Yeah.
Then there was this lady in our cafe who used to speak in English, but would ask us to speak in German so that we learn it, not because she used to force it. Yeah. And she was very sweet, and she would tell us, so even if I make a mistake, she would tell me that you could have spoken like this. Okay. And eventually, if you start using some of the words, even if you don't know the entire thing, people appreciate that you're at least making an effort. So I used to go out with my friends. I would go in a cafe and speak at least some words at least of a dessert, or how to order it, or function, or you say bitte or hello or something like that. So all of that made a lot of difference.
Do you still use Duolingo? Because I have to find you there. I still use that to learn German. I haven't done one in about a week now, but I had a 75-day German language streak on that app recently. I mean, so that's one of my goals, is to definitely get my German from just really poor man's German version to like something really much more sophisticated and academic. I don't know if I can get there, but I want to try at least.
I want Duolingo, but I left I left learning German the day I left Germany.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. I mean, if you don't expect to end up living there, probably it's okay. I just feel like I missed out on an opportunity to I don't know, just be more immersed in a culture. I don't think I could ever be German, but at least I want to have like some kind of certificate that I know German. I only had like an A1 level German. That's the only certificate I have. So I think I can do better than that.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to do all of that, but my time ended there. So I had to leave, and I couldn't finish it.
So around the same time that you were there, based on what I could gather from your LinkedIn profile, you started developing interest in scientific writing. So this is kind of your more recent endeavor into sort of taking steps away from doing bench work and now more into science writing. So how did that kind of transition happen to you, and how did it lead you to where you are now on the east side of America from Germany all the way?
Right. So when I was doing my postdoc, there's this program called as ECLP GSA. So it's a program run by Genetics Society of America, and it's for all the early career scientists who want to pursue postdoc or are planning to do it or are already doing it. And it is for helping those scientists to network, to get a feel of what other things are out there for them to pursue. So this happened because I was attending one of the GSA meetings in the States, and the organizer of this fellowship reached out to me through my Twitter account, and she told me that we definitely need diverse team, and you coming from India, it would help us a lot to increase the diversity in our group, and we would want to learn from you. So I eventually applied for this program, and I got in. And I was very much interested in science communication from the beginning. I used to teach when I was doing my PhD. I started being a mentor for a lot of undergrad kids. So I was quite fond of that. So they put me under a science communication subcommittee. And so the role of my role there was to talk to scientists who have transitioned from academic field to maybe an industry, or to become a lawyer, or they've become a technology transfer agent, or basically somebody who has transitioned, a scientist who has transitioned. So our aim, so we used to interview people who have done some really interesting career transition. I interviewed this first person called as Ananda, and he had actually gone to become a technology transfer agent after his postdoctoral program. So that was the whole aim of the program, was to make scientists out there, audience or the students, to understand that it's not all about academia and it's not all about industry. There are a lot of careers that you can pursue. So we would write those interviews, talk to them, and then write the interviews for this blog called as Genes to Genomes. And it's on the GSA website. So if anybody wants to have a look and wants to understand what are the careers they can pursue, then they can look for that. So this was my first writing stint, a non-academic writing stint. So where we would do these blogs, make these blogs. And I sort of started loving that. I was like, this is not primarily academic. I don't have to write publications, so I don't have to use jargons. And It is I have to use very simple language, make a story. This is what I used to do even when I used to teach my students, like make a story and teach them. So I fell in love with with writing, and really enjoyed that. And then when I came to Boston, I talked to Rajneesh, and he knew that I like writing. So he approached to me maybe last year, and then we started working on different pieces.
Wow. So I feel you obviously written so many different articles just in the last year, covering a range of topics. And I mean, having worked in GeneOnline myself for I think 4-5 months or something, I would muster enough in strength to write like an article or two per week at most. I think you were much more productive than I ever could be. I mean, is writing now easier for you than ever before, or you feel like because you've written so much, you feel like maybe it starts to be a little too repetitive for you? Or like, where do you see yourself in this sort of writing spectrum? Do you have a writer's block at some points?
I would say yes, I have writer's block, but the block is mostly because I don't know how to. So I get blocks when I am starting an article. I don't know how to make. I'm still struggling with finding that right line that makes a reader go wow. So that's something that engages a reader, and I keep struggling with finding that first perfect line or first perfect paragraph. But after that, it becomes easier. So what I did was, when I started writing, I barely read in any news articles. But Rajneesh told me that this is something that we would like to do. And as a GeneOnline, we are a news channel, so we would like to write more of news articles, but then also write, of course, long detailed articles about any research that comes out of institutes or companies. So I remember that when I wrote my first article, it was just exactly like how a company publishes on their website. Very monotonous, very boring. And I thought, oh my God, what have I written? But I had to write something. So, but then Rajneesh modified it and made it more interesting. So it happened like that. But eventually, I started reading stat news. I would read Fierce Biotech. I thought, I don't know how these people, what is out there? I have to find out how can I modify my language. And so when I started reading that, I realized the mistake that I was doing. I was making it I used to give out information without thinking how the audience would perceive. It's not always about giving out the information, but also making connection with them. And you have to make it bouncy, you have to make it funny, interesting, all at the same time in an article. So all my inspiration came from these articles. New York Times is something that I love the most, especially during the time when they started writing about vaccines and medicines. They would make it so interesting for a reader. And for a person like my husband, he's not a scientist, yet he understood what they have written. They took the paper, they made simple paragraphs out of it and presented it to the public. So this is what I aim for. And I haven't reached a stage where I can still write like how they do. So I'm still excited about this field. I keep evolving. I've been evolving, but I keep I try to make myself as much better as I can. So for in terms of writer's block, the block is only while writing, but not for the field completely.
Okay, I see. So it's interesting you bring up Fierce Pharma and Stat News. These are obviously some of the resources that I tend to gravitate to, precisely for the reasons that you say. They have really great writers as far as they tell a story, and they really use the language that is fairly easy to understand and follow, and it makes it quite engaging. So I completely understand what you're saying. So do you feel like you are more of a writer, or you still spend quite a lot of time reading the news yourself? Because we have no shortage of news these days, especially in the biotech or life science world. But what do you find yourself doing more, reading the news or writing them?
I spend more time reading the news, digesting it, and then making it in my own. I mean, presenting it in my own words. So majority of my time goes in doing the market analysis. So very early on, I realized that uh, when you present a news, you also have to present facts that would engage investors or engage people who would want to see the future of a company. So a lot of time, at least 3-4 hours, just go in finding the relevant information, making connection between them, looking at the future and the past of a company. If I'm writing about a company, if I'm writing about a technology, then looking at how it has evolved over the time, how where all it is being utilized now, what is the future of it. So all of that. So a lot of time goes in reading, and because then after that it becomes very easy to just write, because you know where all the points are. And so I jot down all the points, whatever is important, and then make a connection and make a write. Right.
I have to say, just having heard just what you just said makes me feel like that's why you're such a good writer, because you're a really good researcher, right? I feel like that's exactly right, because you have the tenacity to go after and really find those details that tell a story from all those different facts that you research, as a matter of fact. So that's really good. One of the things that I found early last year that was quite difficult was the tone of a lot of news that was coming out. Obviously, just the dire situation that everybody was finding themselves in, and so on and so forth. So it actually had a lot of like let's say negative impact on how I was perceiving the news personally. But I feel like I'm not alone in that. But sort of, where do you land? Where do you recall how you were feeling around the same time? Because obviously you had to do a lot more research than an average person would. And how did that really change your opinion on what was going on? Did it really make you feel worse about what's going on, or actually make you feel better about it?
So it actually made me, I mean, I was quite neutral about it. In the beginning, when everything started, I wasn't so much focusing on the news, because I am not a kind of person who reads a lot of, I mean, is not very up to date with global affairs and all of that. So I would just scan through my Facebook page and see whatever news channel has come up with, but not end up in detail finding about what has happened with the virus and what other countries are doing about it. But then I think in the middle phase, we sort of got really serious. So everybody in my house, like my husband and I, we got super scared about it, because everybody was, I mean, a lot of things started vanishing from supermarkets. And I mean, I never thought that it would become such a big thing. So eventually we got scared. We never got out of the house. We got only groceries and stuff, and that's about it. So it took us I mean, those were that was a time when everything was very dark. But then eventually we started going out, and we had to force ourselves to go out so that we don't become psychotic staying inside the house.
Yeah.
And that tends to happen with a lot of people. So me and my husband and I, we pushed ourselves. We went for treks. We avoided places which were crowded with people, but nevertheless did that. So news-wise, I started reading news only when there would be a news about a drug or a vaccine and what companies are doing about it. So my bandwidth was only till that particular subject. I did not read more gross things about what the virus is doing to people, because I mean, it was already quite sad. So.
Yeah, I completely understand. One of the things that really got a lot of attention in the last year and the beginning of this year too is the impact that news and, let's say, social media has on a lot of the company's finances, actually, which is a bit of a pivot from, let's say, just writing news articles. But one of the things that I was started paying more close attention to are the press releases from biotech companies like Pfizer, for example. And I'm not singling them out. It's a lot of companies are somewhat, I would say, guilty of that they would just push out a press release about the latest data from their clinical trial, which generates so much buzz which works like a broken telephone, and that has like huge waves on the stock market and just in the public's perception of how the company is doing. Do you feel like writing coverage on press releases and just having press releases in general when the data is not, let's say, peer reviewed or let's say completely validated is the right approach for the companies and just for the news outlets that are covering them?
Right. So I personally don't agree that news companies should put out the news before they have actual data about it. But then I have people in my family who are waiting for some good news to come out. Mm-hmm. And whatever ray of sunshine comes out from any company, like Pfizer just mentioned that their vaccine has 94% efficacy. Mm-hmm. And that was just good enough for them to smile. Like they had a ray of hope that something is going to come out after mm-hmm. all. And we have been waiting for that for so long. Mm-hmm. So I feel, as a scientist and as a writer, I feel that they should not do that unless they have complete data about it. But then as a family person, I feel that anything that gives them hope is, mm-hmm. I'm okay about it.
Yeah, it is definitely a sticky kind of question. I know, I understand what you mean, because that some of the examples where some of the news that gets published, like with Pfizer, I understand. I'm on a positive. I'm looking at it from a positive side of things. But one of the other more nefarious examples in my mind was the Biogen example with their enzyme, the Alzheimer's drug that they're trying to push down, and this whole FDA review process that just kind of is working in their favor or not working in their favor. It just generates so much buzz. So I want to maybe address this side of things. So when the news gets, let's say we have a press release and that gets covered by various news articles, and then there's news articles covering other news articles. Mm-hmm. Where do you feel like, how much responsibility does the language with which you write matter in these kinds of communications? Because you can say vaccine works 94%, and when somebody else covers that, you cannot use the same language, but you would probably say, oh, vaccine works. There's how much of an issue you take personally with how carefully you approach the wording of certain things like that.
Wording is at most important. I have seen articles where people write, we have found cure for cancer. How much misleading is that? We have not found cure for cancer. Yeah. So only when you dig in. So these are all lines that are sort of, that help you click on the article, and it's like a clickbait. Mm-hmm. So I personally don't endorse such things. I would want to be straightforward with people, whether it's a bad data or a good data. It has to be told to the public. They are there to decide. I am, as a person, trying to explain them what the bad data means and what the good data means. So whenever I try to write an article about a vaccine, I read the entire paper and instead of reading the news articles, I first go and find the publication related to that. See for myself what bad data have they published, whether it's bad enough or not. Because if I rely on news channels, they try to project everything as either very bad or very good. But there is no in-between situation. So I do my own research. As a scientist, that's my responsibility to not present data that's half-cooked, or not tell people about some things that they themselves cannot decipher. So as a scientist, my responsibility is to present everything that is as it is in the publication, but present it in a simpler words. Not make it too fancy, not make it too easy, not make it too bright. Like even if the data is bad, don't say that everything is good. Like when I wrote about Pfizer, not many people mentioned about the safety side of it. I went and read entire research article just to see what all safety side effects, what all trials they have done, what safety data did they get out. And I actually mentioned it in my article so that people know that it's not all rosy. There are side effects and one should be careful about it. but the efficacy, the benefits are way, way higher. So don't get scared. Don't avoid taking vaccine. But then also keep in mind that it's not all good. So in case if you have a side effect, you should know about it.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel that there is an overabundance of how much data, not data, but like, let's say, information that is out there that we just get bombarded with as far as just the news is concerned? I mean, where is the fine line between too much information and just the right amount of information? Because especially coming from the, let's say, provider side of things, where you want to give people the opportunity to get to know certain things, do you feel at some point like, oh, there's just too much information, there's way too much coverage on that, and I don't necessarily feel like I want to add any more to that than has already been said?
Right, that happens to me a lot of times. Sometimes I don't know which ones to filter out and which ones to keep in, and then I end up picking up things which I feel are important for people to know. So I always keep in mind my audience. What will my audience want to know from my article? Why will they read my article? What new information am I telling them that has not already been told? So I look for those pieces or those information which will help them understand a medicine or a vaccine better, and then I write about that.
I see. Obviously, science writing is a big part of your life right now, but where do you see yourself going? Do you see the science writing being as prevalent as it is to you right now, or there's some other things on the horizon for you that you feel like you haven't really had a chance to explore yet?
There are many things. I mean, bench work is definitely something that I'm looking forward to. That is one. I mean, everything right now is at equal priority. There is nothing at high priority right now, but I am also looking forward to something related to teaching, because that is something that I've been doing before, communicating science. So I definitely want to explore that arena where I can teach maybe college students or get into programs where I get an opportunity to communicate science, either writing wise or by speaking or making programs or diagrams or something like that. Mm-hmm. That is one aspect that I've been looking for. Since I love teaching, I love talking, I'm also looking for roles like where I can go and talk to students about new technology of a company or something that a field application scientist does, or something related to consulting, which also involves a lot of sales, and you have to talk to your customers and make them understand what the technology is, how to troubleshoot that. So yes.
Yeah. I mean, definitely as far as your science communication skills, I mean, they can only get so much better at this point. I mean, with that much experience doing the science writing, I mean, I think there you might have hitting the upper echelons of how science, how efficient you will be. But what the question I want to ask you is this: who are the better students, the young children or let's say adults in college? Who is the easiest to teach?
That's a very difficult question. I have taught both these age groups. Young children are difficult to manage in a way because I don't know how much concentration they have. So that's a very difficult thing. To teach them science, you have to make them attentive to what you're teaching and to get their attention on that. And that's very tough. So I try to first engage that class and see if, make them some jokes or something that would get their attention to me, make the class as friendly as possible so that they don't feel like I'm a teacher and they are a student and they need to be disciplined or like that. They can ask me questions, weird questions, be it anything, but that's what I'm for. Older students are difficult because they can mentally challenge you. If you're teaching and if somebody starts laughing on you or on your teaching methods, then it can be really disappointing. So there are different challenges in both the age groups, but I guess can be managed.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Ruchi, for having a chance to speak with me today. It's really an honor to finally have you on this podcast. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me and finally we got a chance to meet, and it's been a pleasure talking to you.